Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video, I'm not only going to be teaching you about the best team comp for Jingliu, but also some things you can take into account because there are certain 5-star characters that might be released in future that are important to keep a lookout for. I'll give you the key things that she needs as a character, so you'll also be able to build team comps for the future too. We of course will have a section on that in a little bit. Let me give you the TLDR. Basically, her kit, what she needs is like attack percentage. She likes a bit of speed, action, advance so that she can use her ultimate, get higher uptime in her turn on state, basically I like to call it. She enters a turn on state after she gains a certain amount of stacks of CCG, and of course she loses stacks as she's in the mode, and while she's in her turn on state, she saps off a lot of life from her teammates as well. So with that in mind, I think there are a few things that are critical to know, and of course let's start things off first with a very obvious one, a character like Jingliu. Really, Jingliu is not really a difficult character to build around. She's very straightforward, quite easy and intuitive, but let me just explain why certain characters are good and better than others. Jingliu gives attack buffing, she gives energy restoration, and also she gives a little bit of like speed buff as well in her E1, which is very nice because energy restoration means she gets to use her ult more often, Jingliu, able to get more stacks of CCG and more uptime on it as well. Attack buffing is something that she does like quite a lot. She has a lot of crit damage in her kit from her tracers as well as her main overall kit already. I think attack percentage is very nice for her. Jingliu fits this build very well, but I think the biggest issue of Jingliu is not that there's a problem with her kit herself, but is there are many characters that use this character. For example, like Jingliu, EODGamer, all can find good value with her as well. Even Zilla to some extent can also use Jingliu still very nicely as well, which is why it's very tricky to play this character because everyone kind of needs her. I'll give you an alternative. I think the best alternative out of all the other characters, 4 stars at least, is Pella, especially if you have her at E4. At base E0 Pella, she's already very good because she has an AoE defense break in her ultimate ability. She removes buffs with her E, so if you're fighting any of those Xianzhou, Luofu, Mara struck mobs, you can remove those healing buffs, that revive buff. Very nice utility to have as well from Pella. If you have her E4, she becomes even stronger because she's able to lower the resistance of enemy monsters when she uses her skill. Very solid. I think it's like a 12% resistance down for ice weaknesses, which is excellent for Jingliu's case because then she defense breaks, she lowers ice res, and if you have the light cone resolution shines as pearls of sweat, you even lower the enemy defense a bit more in an AoE fashion, of course because it's a nihility light cone that she can use. So many advantages so far for this character. If you're looking for a proxy for Jingliu that you don't have her free and available because every single of your roster can use, you could consider putting Pella instead of Jingliu. I think she'll be very attractive as an alternative since not many other characters can use Pella as well as Jingliu because of the ice synergies that you have as well. For those of you who maybe are a bit luckier, you have a 5-star Harmony character. I think Bronya is also a really good alternative to Jingliu. To some extent, I think she might be even better, especially if you have her E2 available, which also increases speed and becomes even more skill point positive. But not everyone is like a Mega Lord Whale having multiple Eidolons, so I'm going to be covering mainly E0 Bronya. Why is Bronya good? She gives a lot of crit damage, she gives attack, which is similar to what Jingliu gives for Jingliu. But of course, the advantage that Bronya has is her 100% action advance, which allows you to quickly push up Jingliu to act. She can go faster, she can go slower, you can have multiple team comps to try it out, but even if she's faster or slower, she gets her stacks much quicker the faster she acts, whether she's on her turn on state or turn off state. Bronya just pushes it up, immediately you get to do something. It's a strategic decision as well. I think Bronya is interesting to think about. Good amounts of damage buffing, attack buffing, crit damage buffing, and turn order manipulation, very strong. Jingliu on the other hand, of course, gives a lot more energy, which is not as instant because it's a flat amount that's not modified by energy restoration rate. So I think that is where Bronya ages out a little bit over Jingliu, but they both suffer from the similar case. A lot of characters like these two units as well, because if you have Bronya and you're playing like Blade, also it's super good, Zilla is also super good. To some extent, EODGamer, Jingliu, all would want either of these. That's why I think Pella likely will be like the best from a team, like a holistic account perspective. I think Pella is the most attractive value gainer in this sense. So that's for like the buffing category, and maybe I'll put Pella here to some extent like a utility category. Some other units that I want to talk about for the sustain category will be two. Of course, the first one that we have is the 5-star himself, Luo Ca. Very strong unit because of the feel that he gives. She saps HP from her teammates, so you generally look for some sustain. He provides that passive sustain, he cleanses, he removes enemies' buffs as well. A super good unit that skills off with attack, so if you have a team-wide attack buffer, he benefits from it, from healing. If you don't have 5-star, not everyone has so many good 5 stars. I think a character that can be looked at will be Nickss. She draws aggro to destruction characters, allowing you to funnel more attacks into her to indirectly like give her more energy restoration, because when enemies hit her, she also will regenerate a bit of life. She has team-wide cleanse, team-wide healing as well, so very good and attractive option. The other alternative that you have, of course, is Natasha. Natasha also has cleanse, Natasha has team-wide healing. Everyone starts off with Natasha. A very good unit, and I think it's also a pretty solid addition. Characters I don't like here. I think one of the questions a lot of people will be thinking of is Fucc. I don't really like Fucc for Jingliu. Why do I say that? It's because she saps the life of her teammates. Very similar to any of you who are used to playing Blade, you will find that Blade and Fucc actually don't get along really well. She works with a lot of other rosters, but self-HP depleting characters or characters like Jingliu who sap the HP kind of bypass her damage mitigation aspect, which kind of nullifies the effectiveness of her. She's not able to sustain quick enough also, especially if you have a very fast Jingliu who keeps sapping the life of your entire team. If you want to play Fucc, I don't think it's impossible. If you play her here, you probably have to play a sustain, then you might be losing out on DPS for the sake of damage mitigation as well as crit rate that she gives to the entire team. You could make it work, but we'll see. I think there are many other options available too. So that is one character that I want to cover. A lot of you might be thinking about that as well. Bailu, I don't like it as much as the 4 stars because you want a bit of cleanse in your roster. If you place Bailu here, you might not have a significant amount of cleanse. So those are my thoughts for a basic team just like this. Let me now talk about a few other characters that I think is pretty interesting. For the most part, if you play Bronya, Tingyun, as well as Pella here with one sustain like Luota, this is a very nice auto battle team. But for any of you who have like maybe more resources, like you have more luck and you have more Eidolons, I think a character like Yukong might be very interesting to consider as well, especially if these two are very, very busy. If you have her at high Eidolons, she's actually very strong, especially at E6, but unfortunately not very auto battle friendly. So I think that Yukong definitely is worth considering if you have her at high Eidolons and don't mind playing in manual mode. And that is for like my Hypercarry category. Of course, a few more questions that you guys might be thinking of is, what if we get a 5-star limited character for example, Harmony? We'll talk about that in a bit, but first things first, let's go on with a category called the Ice Weakness, which is, I think, something special about Jingliu, because some of you who are picking her up likely will be focusing on the Ice Weakness element. Maybe you want to abuse it, do more damage. Definitely, I think the buffer that becomes like super good in slot will become Pella rather than like previously we mentioned Tingyun as well as Bronya, because of the ice rest threat that she has, defense break that is universal across the board, and of course other nihility like cones that she could use, like resolution shines of pearls of sweat to reduce damage even further. In the utility section, we have 2 characters. I placed Herta here just for the sake of any of you who don't have Silverwolf, but really I think I really mean Silverwolf here. The idea that we want to play is we want to play an ice team that freezes the enemy, breaks their weakness bar. Silverwolf is very nice because you drop in weaknesses on the enemy. A lot of people are proposing to use the Genius of Brilliant Stars Quantum set, and this is one of the reasons why, is if you play like an ice weakness, ice as well as quantum hybrid, you drop the quantum weakness into the enemy, you will get an additional defense down for ice characters, even if you lose like the RNG 50-50 of dropping ice or quantum weakness in a duo team. So that is one of the things that is worth considering. She of course is a defense breaker on top of another defense breaker which stacks very nicely. You can get quite a lot of the damage done from the defense breaking side. The issue here of course with this comp is you do not have attack buffing units here, and she does skill and she likes a bit of attack percentage. Of course, if she is able to set the teammate's life, maybe she can get some of the attack percentage from there. We have to see more testing, but I still like a double defense breaker for just that compounding effect. Last but not least, of course, sustain here. I put the ice characters slightly below because if you are running Jingliu, you generally do want to run a good amount of sustain. Links might not even be enough, but I think it's for now is the best that we have for a double quantum here in terms of sustain to heal the whole team, to cleanse if needed. Ice type units, if you are playing Silverwolf here, will be of course nice to have triple ice. What I would like to see in future of course is an ice abundance character to heal and sustain a little bit more. Then we'll have a very nice like mono ice team. For now, the only real option if you want to run like triple ice with Silverwolf is with a E6 fast March 7, so you can get as much healing as you can across the team. Otherwise, it's a little bit more trickier to run without an abundance character, and that's why Nickss is like slightly above these two. In that case, you could consider like putting Herta here instead of Silver Wolf if like you don't have Silver Wolf, for example. That's another option that you can run for a mono ice team. And I think this part is the one that probably a lot of you might be thinking of, because right now the game state is not going to be constant. It will always have new characters coming up, especially if there's a future Ice Harmony character, maybe 5 stars. I have no idea what this light cone is doing here, probably just left over from some of my previous videos. But anyway, if we have an Ice Harmony character coming up in future, will be very interesting because it will work really well with Jingliu. Super strong because then is playing into her teams. They can use Planetary Rendezvous. Might be the best Ice, best Harmony character that we have ever seen so far. Who knows? More information has to be given. But in that case, I think characters that can be definitely considered for the utility section, very similar to the Ice Weakness section, we can have characters like Pella for the Ice Rest threat. You can have Silver Wolf to drop in Ice Weakness to make sure the enemy has an Ice Weakness that you can break. Welt might also be an interesting character to consider, because if for example you have a character that speeds up the team, maybe in this section or this section here, you have a speed down on Welt, you compound slowing the enemies while you speed up your entire team. Together with the Ice Freeze that you get, a lot of control, a lot of movement as well, I think, and you don't sustain as much damage. So I think Welt is an underrated character that could see more play depending if there are nice speed up units in the game too. So this 3 in the utility section, and of course in the last section here, I put here a very big abundance character that is in future. What I would like to see in an abundance character is either an attack buffer, energy restoration character, or a speed up abundance unit that of course heals the team, and ideally I would like to see a bit of cleanse, but if not, I think it's not that detrimental, especially if you're playing a character that slows the enemy team like Welt, so you already have some control with ice, slow, and even some healing here just in case. The other characters, of course, if you don't have this, or if this doesn't materialize, is definitely characters, for example, like Luota. Link's likely still going to be very, very strong healers, just not perfect for a kit because they are not like super 100% synergetic with her, like giving everything that she needs. And that is my thoughts for like the future plan. And I think another fun one to do is this is just a meme team I just want to make for any of you who just want to play with like characters that you like to play, waifu teams. A lot of these are like red flags. I was like thinking, do I drag this in? Then I decided I'm not going to get in trouble with the FBI or anything. So I'm just going to keep it plain and simple. Let me know if any of these characters are also wrong, because some I don't even know their age. For example, like Pella, I have no idea what is the actual age of these characters. So I'm just putting it here just for a balance between meta as well as balance between waifu. For buff category, I think the same. You have Bronya, you have Tingyun, you have Pella. All 3 characters are really strong for the buffing category. Utility characters, I guess there's quite a few now. You have characters that are, so on top here I put like the defense breaking characters. These are going to be very, very strong for the respective reasons that we have mentioned. And this bottom part here is going to be your weakness breakers in case you need. So Serval for lightning weakness break, you have physical weakness break from Susang, as well as like fire weakness break from Topaz and Nambi. Of course, it's a little bit more expensive, but this is one way you can just run a waifu team that you are thinking of. And for sustain, unfortunately, we only have like one that is like pretty decent and I guess above allowable age to be considered as a waifu, Natasha. In future we might have more, then we might expand this part here. But those are my thoughts for this section so far. Of course, I guess Fushan could be here, but it's very tricky without a proper sustain running with Jingliu, so that's why I left her out for the reasons that I mentioned slightly earlier on as well. And last but not least, I don't want this video just to be very expensive characters and like the perfect theory crafting or meta kind of thing. I want to give something for everyone, and if you are a very new player, maybe this is the first time you're joining Honkai Star Rail, you likely don't have all the fancy characters and roster to choose from, so I'm going to give you a free to play option that everyone will have, and it's really like in this top row over here, and some alternatives as you go along. Let's say you pull on the banner, you didn't get lucky and get Tingyun at all. A character that you can consider playing first will be Esta. Esta offers speed, which helps her get more actions on the turn, and also gives a lot of attack buffs, which she definitely likes quite a lot. Not a bad thing, especially if her ultimate just pushes her up with flat amounts of speed. If she has low base speed, she likely will prefer flat rather than percentage base. Esta does give a little bit of that too. You can run with Dance for more action advance on the light cone, probably good. Enough for the time being. Of course, ideally you want to shift on if you can get lucky and get either one of these characters eventually. But for the utility section, similar to what we mentioned previously, Serval as well as Susang, which are free characters, They have been released for free already. Serval for weakness breaking, you have Susang for weakness breaking as well. You can choose either way depending on what the floor requires. If you need more lightning damage, you can put Serval in, and also more AoE here. If you need more physical focus, you can put Susang in. Both of them are very flexible, can be built for DPS, can be built for weakness breaking or break effect kind of build. Very flexible units, relatively independent, don't really need much like boosting, babysitting, solid characters all around. And of course, if you can ideally switch over the Pella, will likely find more value there too with the AoE defense break and E4 defense shredding. Sustain, I think Natasha is a pretty good solid roster to start off with. Ideally, of course, if you want the aggro draw, Lynx might be more interesting for tactical combination, but I think out of all of this, the least restraint is in the sustain category. Natasha probably will do a good job and get you well for her already. I think it's really, really solid. March 7 definitely needs a little bit more Eidolons, E6 ideally for the healing. Lynx, of course, is gacha 4-star, so you have to get lucky on the RNG. And yeah, if you appreciate such content, you might find these other videos helpful, and I do this every single patch for every single character. If you're interested in Topaz and Nambi, or maybe Zila, you can check out these other videos right here on the channel. And thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.